Few people have the courage to admit it, but most people don't lose respect for big mistakes. They lose it for small, repeated, almost invisible behaviors. Things that seem normal, polite, or even virtuous, but which, in the eyes of real human nature, silently destroy your reputation. Machiavelli already knew this. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, reveals that the world doesn't reward good intentions, it rewards perception. And perception is born from what you demonstrate, not from what you believe yourself to be. Perhaps you've already experienced this firsthand. People who, for no apparent reason, start treating you with less consideration. Opinions that were once listened to are now ignored. Doors that close without explanation. It's not bad luck. It's not persecution. It's social perception. The problem is that no one taught you which behaviors signal weakness, instability, or low status, and you may be engaging in several of them thinking you're doing the right thing. In this video, you'll understand 7 common behaviors that erode your public image and how to avoid them with strategic intelligence. No cheap tricks or empty promises. Here, the focus is on self-control, reading people, and the calculated use of emotional power. Because, like it or not, the end justifies the means when the means is preserving your reputation. And once you see that, you can no longer pretend you didn't know. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos. It's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now, not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. There's a silent rule that separates those who advance from those who are constantly interrupted along the way. Those who announce too much, execute too little. An attentive mentor observes that when someone reveals their plans ahead of time, they are trading power for premature applause. Machiavelli already warned that politics guided by reality, not ideals, demands discretion because the world doesn't react to intentions, it reacts to accomplished facts. When you talk too much, you activate invisible forces, envy, sabotage, external noise, that drain your virtue and deliver your fortune into the wrong hands. The end justifies the means here not as malice, but as strategic intelligence. The most efficient means is silence. It's no coincidence that real leaders rarely explain what they will do tomorrow. They let the result appear on its own, strong, undeniable. Announcing plans gives a false sense of progress, an emotional relief that replaces execution. And therein lies the danger. You feel you are advancing, but you are standing still. The calculated use of force begins precisely with this: saving energy until the right moment to act. In practice, this is simple, although uncomfortable for those who crave validation. If you've decided to change careers, don't publish motivational texts about new cycles. Study in silence, build real skills, create your own loyal armies. Skills, contacts, financial reserves, and only then move. If the plan is to start a business, don't announce the idea at the coffee shop or to your group of friends. Test small, fail fast, adjust with constant adaptability. Those who constantly announce projects are usually seeking emotional permission, and this reveals insecurity. Better to be feared than loved in this context means being respected for what you deliver, not for what you promise. Results speak a universal language. They don't need subtitles. Observe people who truly prosper. They emerge out of nowhere, but only to those who weren't paying attention to the silent work behind it. The appearance of virtue, when anticipated, becomes weakness. Strategic silence, on the other hand, creates curiosity, respect, and room for maneuver. There's also a little discussed psychological detail. When you reveal your next step, the brain receives dopamine as if you've already achieved something, and this reduces your urge to act. It's treacherous. That's why decisions based on real human nature require emotional restraint. An experienced mentor would say, talk less about what you're going to do and more about what you do every day. Want to read more? Instead of announcing it, start with 20 pages a day of books like The Prince, Think and Grow Rich, or biographies of strategic leaders. Want to improve your financial position? Instead of discussing gains or losses, study solid investments, build a reserve, diversify calmly. Silence is not passivity, it's preparation. And the more you master this invisible game, the more you realize that other seemingly harmless behaviors, like complaining in public, also reveal more than they should. Complaining seems harmless, almost therapeutic, but an attentive mentor sees beyond the surface. Every public complaint is a silent confession of loss of control. When someone talks too much about their problems, they convey to the environment the idea that they are being dominated by circumstances, not the other way around. Machiavelli understood this clearly when he observed that decisions based on real human nature require emotional control, not impulsive exposure. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that the world respects those who bear the weight without dramatizing. Excessive complaining creates an image of instability, and low status never attracts strong allies. The end justifies the means here clearly. The most effective way to preserve reputation is restraint. Suffering is part of life, but suffering in silence preserves virtue and keeps your fortune intact. Whoever controls the discourse controls perception, and perception in the social game is everything. In practice, this means learning to suffer with dignity. Financial, professional, or personal problems exist for everyone, but only some make a spectacle of them. The common mistake is turning friends, colleagues, or social networks into public confessionals, draining energy from those who listen and weakening those who speak. This behavior creates what many call an emotional vampire, someone who always arrives burdened with complaints and leaves lighter, while the atmosphere becomes heavy. An experienced strategist avoids this. They choose few people, private environments, and the right moments to deal with their shadows. Avoiding being hated also involves this, because nobody likes someone who constantly spreads negativity. Instead of complaining about work, silently study a better way out. Instead of complaining about lack of money, build your own loyal armies, new skills, side income, financial discipline. The calculated use of force, in this case, is emotional. There's another subtle detail. Those who complain frequently become predictable, and predictability is a strategic weakness. People quickly learn where you hurt, where you feel wronged, where you lose your balance, and that becomes ammunition. Better to be feared than loved, here, means being perceived as someone who can withstand pressure without falling apart. A mentor would say, transform complaining into internal observation and external action. Write in a notebook, think calmly, adjust your course with constant adaptability. Read authors who deal with personal responsibility, such as Viktor Frankl or Napoleon Hill himself, to understand how pain can become strength. The appearance of virtue isn't about seeming happy all the time, but about not transferring your emotional weight to the world. And when you master this, you realize there's another, even more common mistake, losing your temper in public, that hands over control on a silver platter. Losing one's temper is one of the most costly mistakes in the social game, although many people still confuse emotional outbursts with strength. An experienced mentor knows that anger doesn't intimidate, it exposes. When someone loses control, they show their environment that they can be pulled by invisible strings, like an emotional puppet. Machiavelli observed that decisions based on real human nature require composure, because those who react impulsively relinquish control of the situation. Politics, guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that well-placed silence is more disturbing than any shout. The end justifies the means here clearly. The most efficient way to win a conflict is not to reveal where your weakness lies. Anger is exactly that, an exposed weakness. Those who remain calm preserve their virtue and create an advantage without raising their voice. In practice, one only needs to observe tense meetings, family arguments, or public debates. The person who gets agitated, interrupts, or raises their voice loses credibility instantly. On the other hand, the one who listens, pauses, and responds with few words dominates the rhythm of the conversation. In this scenario, being feared rather than loved means being respected for emotional stability. Silence, when used intentionally, creates discomfort in the other person because it forces the nervous individual to confront their own lack of control. The calculated use of emotional force lies precisely in not reacting immediately. Counting to 10, taking a deep breath, or simply postponing the response are simple but powerful actions. Great leaders do this all the time. They let the other person speak, make mistakes, express themselves, and only then do they take a stand. In this way, they avoid being hated and preserve their image of authority. There is also a little noticed psychological effect. Those who lose their temper become predictable. Just press the right button and the explosion comes. A strategist never allows this. They work with constant adaptability, adjusting their posture according to the environment without ever losing their focus. Instead of reacting, they observe. Instead of arguing, they mentally record. Reading works on self-control and strategy, such as Marcus Aurelius's Meditations or texts on applied stoicism, helps to train this posture. It's not about swallowing everything, but about choosing the right moment to act. The appearance of virtue lies in seeming unshakable, even when there is internal tension. And when someone learns to master their own patience, they realize that there is another common slip that silently undermines reputations: apologizing when it's not necessary. Apologizing at inappropriate times may seem polite, but an attentive mentor sees the hidden cost of this habit. Unnecessary apologies function as small confessions of guilt that no one asked for. They signal insecurity and lower your position in the social game. Machiavelli already observed that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires a cold reading of the environment. Whoever apologizes all the time teaches others to treat them as someone who is always wrong. The end justifies the means here clearly. The most effective way to maintain authority is to use the word sorry with surgical precision. When you apologize without having caused real harm, you transfer power to the other person gratuitously. This corrodes your virtue little by little and weakens your relational fortune. Respect is not born from excessive humility, but from emotional balance. In practice, observe everyday situations. Someone apologizes for asking a question, for disagreeing, for taking up space, for simply existing. This pattern silently communicates low status. Better to be feared than loved. Here means being respected for standing by your position without asking permission. If you arrive late and inconvenience someone, an apology is necessary. If you express a firm and polite opinion, there's nothing to apologize for. A strategist reserves apologies for when there is concrete harm, not to alleviate their own discomfort. This also helps avoid being hated, because genuine apologies, when they happen, carry weight and authenticity. The calculated use of emotional force lies in not diminishing oneself to appear agreeable. There's an important psychological detail. Those who apologize excessively create an internal narrative of inferiority, and the world merely reflects this. Decisions based on real human nature show that people respect clear boundaries. A mentor would advise, replace sorry with conscious responsibility. Instead of sorry for being late, say, I'll get straight to the point. Instead of sorry to ask, say, I have a direct question. D. This simple change preserves your image and reinforces your presence. The appearance of virtue lies not in fading away, but in acting with serene firmness. With constant adaptability, you learn when to yield and when to stand firm. And by mastering this, you begin to perceive another sensitive territory where many sabotage themselves without realizing it, the exposure of their own financial situation. Talking about money in public is one of the most common and most costly mistakes when it comes to reputation. An experienced mentor knows that revealing too much about your financial situation rarely yields real benefit. If you demonstrate scarcity, you arouse pity. If you demonstrate abundance, you arouse envy. In both cases, you lose control of the narrative. Machiavelli already made it clear that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires strategic neutrality, not offering emotional ammunition to anyone. The end justifies the means here in a pragmatic way. The most intelligent means is ambiguity. When no one knows exactly where you stand financially, you preserve your virtue and protect your fortune from external interference. Money, when exposed, attracts expectations, judgments, and hidden interests. Silence in this field is shielding. In practice, this means avoiding both self-deprecation and ostentation. Complaining about being broke invites disrespect. Displaying gains invites comparisons and resentment. Better to be feared than loved, in this context, means being respected for discretion. A strategist doesn't discuss salaries, investments, or debts in social circles. He builds his own loyal armies in silence: emergency fund, predictable income, diversification. Instead of talking about money, he studies. Books like The Richest Man in Babylon, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or Think and Grow Rich help create a solid mindset. The calculated use of financial power lies in not needing to prove anything. Those who truly have control feel no need to announce it. There's also a delicate psychological point. When you reveal your financial situation, people begin to reinterpret everything you do based on that information. Your choices cease to be your own and become subject to judgment. Decisions based on real human nature show that this reduces freedom. A mentor would advise, let your behavior reveal stability, not numbers. Dress soberly, keep your commitments, pay what you owe, avoid explanations. The appearance of virtue lies in seeming consistent, not in seeming rich or poor. With constant adaptability, you learn to move through different environments without fitting into financial labels. And when this silence becomes established, another mistake that slowly destroys reputations becomes evident: talking too much about other people's lives. Gossip is a social vice disguised as innocent conversation, and an experienced mentor learns early on to recognize it as a trap. When someone speaks ill of others, they believe they are creating connection, but in reality, they are signing a certificate of insecurity. Machiavelli understood that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires cold reading. Whoever gossips about others today will be seen tomorrow as someone who will do the same about you. The end justifies the means here in an elegant way. The most efficient way to maintain power is not to get your hands dirty with other people's narratives. Speaking ill of others corrodes one's own virtue because it associates one's image with intrigue, not leadership. In professional and social environments, reputation is built more by what you don't say than by what you do say. Selective silence is an advanced form of authority. In practice, this requires self-control and awareness. Conversations start lightly. Someone mentions a third party, and suddenly the temptation arises to add criticism, secrets, or judgments. A strategist retreats. They listen, observe patterns, but don't contribute. They become an information black hole. Everything goes in, nothing comes out. This behavior creates immediate respect because people feel they can speak near you without fear of exposure. Better to be feared than loved, in this context, means being respected as someone trustworthy and unpredictable. Avoiding being hated comes down to exactly that, because gossip always returns to the sender. The calculated use of social power lies in not needing to diminish anyone to feel superior. There is also a profound psychological effect. Those who speak ill of others anchor themselves in the shadow of others to sustain their own ego. Decisions based on real human nature show that this type of posture hinders growth. A mentor would advise, when gossip arises, shift the focus to facts, ideas, or silence. If you want to practice this, start by observing environments where real leaders are present. They rarely comment on other people's lives. Read biographies of strategic figures and notice how the description of others is always objective, never emotional. The appearance of virtue lies in seeming above intrigue, not morally superior. With constant adaptability, you learn when to speak and especially when to remain silent. And in mastering this silence, an even more subtle mistake arises, over-explaining your own philosophy of life. There's a common trap for those beginning to develop strategic awareness: the need to explain their thinking. An experienced mentor knows that any philosophy explained in public becomes a target. Machiavelli already warned that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires less discourse and more visible action. When someone preaches their values, they hand over an interpretation manual for others to use against them. The end justifies the means here, as lucidity. The safest way is to live your philosophy, not to discourse about it. Words create promises, promises create demands, and demands limit your constant adaptability. Those who explain too much become tied to a fixed image, while the strategist preserves mobility. True virtue appears in repeated behavior, not in beautiful speeches. In practice, this means resisting the temptation to correct the world. It's not your role to convince people of what is right, just, or true. When you explain your philosophy, you create unnecessary enemies and spark ego clashes. Better to be feared than loved in this context means being respected for silent consistency. Observe real leaders. They don't constantly lecture about ethics. They make decisions and let time reveal the logic behind them. Avoiding being hated involves not positioning yourself as a moral judge. The calculated use of force lies in acting firmly and letting others draw their own conclusions. Those who constantly preach values end up trapped by them, even when reality demands adjustment. There's also a subtle psychological aspect. Explaining your philosophy is often about seeking intellectual validation. Decisions based on real human nature show that people don't follow ideas, they follow results. A mentor would advise, if you believe in discipline, be disciplined. If you believe in silence, be silent. If you believe in strategy, act strategically. Read less to discuss, more to apply. The Prince, Think and Grow Rich and biographies of pragmatic leaders teach this between the lines. The appearance of virtue lies in seeming consistent without needing to justify yourself. And when you abandon the need to explain who you are, you begin to notice another, even more common mistake: seeking external approval and validation. Seeking approval is one of the most subtle and most destructive behaviors for someone's reputation. An experienced mentor recognizes this pattern from afar because it appears disguised as humility, politeness, or good manners. Machiavelli already understood that politics guided by reality, not ideals, reveals a harsh truth. Those who need the validation of others compromise their own core. The end justifies the means here as strategic clarity. The most effective way to preserve power is not to depend emotionally on applause. When someone acts expecting recognition, they become guided by the mood of the environment, not by their own virtue. And this weakens decisions, posture, and presence. External approval is unstable by nature. It comes today, it disappears tomorrow. Those who build a solid reputation learn not to base their identity on it. In practice, seeking validation manifests in simple behaviors, constantly asking, "What do you think?" Changing your mind to please others, justifying personal decisions unnecessarily. A strategist observes, decides, and stands by it. Better to be feared than loved. In this context, means being respected for not conforming to every opinion of others. This isn't arrogance, it's self-control. Avoiding being hated involves not imposing anything, but also not explaining yourself beyond what's necessary. The calculated use of emotional power lies in accepting that not everyone will agree with you, and that's okay. Great leaders don't ask permission to exist, they simply exist consistently. The validation that truly matters is internal, built with aligned actions and daily discipline. There's also a profound psychological point. The more someone seeks approval, the further they distance themselves from themselves. Decisions based on real human nature show that this generates constant anxiety because the criteria change all the time. A mentor would advise, establish your own parameters for success. If you've decided to study, study. If you've decided to train, train. If you've decided to change course, change, without asking the world for emotional blessing. Reading authors who talk about self-discipline and purpose helps reinforce this, such as Napoleon Hill or texts on personal responsibility. The appearance of virtue lies not in being liked by everyone, but in being whole. With constant adaptability, you learn to listen without diluting yourself. And when this internal axis strengthens, the last mistake, perhaps the most dangerous of all, becomes evident, exposing vulnerabilities and shadows in public. There is a dangerous modern confusion between vulnerability and irresponsible exposure. An experienced mentor understands that showing everything is not courage. It is often recklessness. Machiavelli already observed that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires discernment about what to reveal and to whom. When someone exposes their weaknesses in public, they provide a complete map of where they can be hurt. The end justifies the means here as strategic protection. The most intelligent means is to choose safe environments to deal with one's own shadow. Public vulnerability does not generate lasting respect. It generates curiosity, judgment, or opportunism. Those who preserve their virtue know that not every space is sacred and not every audience is an ally. In practice, this means differentiating intimacy from emotional spectacle. Social networks, professional environments, and wide circles are not places to unload deep pain, trauma, or insecurities. A strategist saves that for trusted people, private conversations, and therapeutic contexts. Better to be feared than loved. Here means being respected for maintaining composure even in difficult moments. Avoiding being hated also involves this, because excessive exposure generates discomfort for others. The calculated use of emotional strength lies in knowing when to open up and when to close up. Great leaders feel fear, doubt, and anguish. The difference is that they process this in silence and return to the world with clarity. There is also a little noticed psychological effect. When you expose your shadow in public, you become reduced to it. Decisions based on real human nature show that people rarely forget what was revealed in moments of fragility. A mentor would advise, treat your vulnerability as a sensitive asset. Work on it with reading, reflection, private writing, and, when necessary, professional help. Books on practical psychology, Stoic philosophy, or in-depth personal development help in this silent process. The appearance of virtue lies in appearing whole, even when you are rebuilding yourself. With constant adaptability, you learn to choose the right stage for each part of yourself. And when this awareness settles in, everything that came before begins to fit together as a complete system for protecting your reputation. Now that you've recognized these behaviors, the question is no longer whether they work. It's what you're going to do with this knowledge. Because reputation isn't built on grand speeches, but on small daily decisions, what you keep silent about, what you stand by, what you refuse to explain. Machiavelli was right to show that politics guided by reality, not ideals, demands constant awareness. Every action you take communicates something, even when you think no one is paying attention. And the hard truth is, the world is always watching. So it's worth reflecting. When have you been talking too much? Where have you been unknowingly seeking validation? In what situations has your emotion taken the wheel instead of strategy? If you apply just one of these ideas, you'll already start to stand out. If you apply them all, it completely changes how you are perceived. Better to be feared than loved. Here doesn't mean being harsh or cold. It means being respected for having balance, boundaries, and control. The calculated use of force lies not in confrontation, but in silent presence. Now I want to know from you, which of these behaviors has harmed you the most until now? Which one will you start correcting from now on? Write it in the comments. This helps you make a commitment to yourself. And if this content brought you clarity, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Here, you learn to play the game as it's really played, with clarity, strategy, and constant adaptability.